Hey everyone, Ace of Clay here, and welcome to another tutorial. In this one, I'm going to teach you how to make a creepy mouth pin, like this right here. Alright, let's get into it. On our materials list, you are going to need some Beige Super Sculpey, some translucent clay, I'm using Premo, pink Polymer clay, all your favorite sculpting tools as usual, a toothbrush, an old paintbrush, preferably one that's like destroyed like that. You don't really have to have this, but I like it and you'll see why I need it in a sec. Then we have our paints here. I am using Folk Art and Americana. I have red, brown, and black. And then I also have glossy varnish. This is triple thick, it's by Americana, and this is really good. And then you're going to need clear casting resin. I'm using Amazing Clear Cast like I do with everything else. A pin back, one or two of these depending on how big you want to make your pen. Some chalk pastels, and an X-Acto knife. That's everything, so let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take some translucent clay here, the Premo I have, and I'm going to start sculpting the teeth. I want to do a combination of realistic human teeth and sharp, crazy monster fangs. So I'm going to make the realistic human ones first. And then basically what I'm doing is I'm just balling up a little piece of clay, pinching it to create this sort of triangular shape, and then I'm pinching it again with my thumb and forefinger from the back to the front, and that's creating that realistic tooth shape when I turn it to the side. So do that, and then we're just going to make a bunch of teeth really quick here. All right, and then once you got your human teeth done, it's time to make some fangs. To do this, I'm just taking a little piece of clay, balling it up, and then rolling it on my surface, adding more pressure to one end to bring it to a point, gently curve it so that it's more fang shaped and it's not just straight up and down. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and make a bunch of different fangs at a bunch of different sizes. All right, now that we've got all our teeth sculpted, it's time to bake these. So they're just going to poke right into the clay, and you'll see in just a few seconds. So I'm going to go bake the teeth, and we can start building our mouth while the teeth are baking. All right, now to make the mouth, we're going to start here with some of our Beige Super Sculpey. I'm just going to knead it a little bit here. And this is going to serve as the foundation for the rest of the mouth. So with that, I'm just going to smash it down a little bit, spread it out, and then make this kind of lip shape. All right, that's looking pretty good. And then I'm just going to take my ball stylus here, and I'm going to roll it along the edges to kind of, help me create the inside of the mouth here. And then I'm just going to continue shaping this and shaping it and shaping it and shaping it and shaping it. All right, now that we've got our mouth shape done, it's time to mix some clay colors. Now the first color I'm going to mix is going to be the color for the gums and the tongue, and I am using a combination of Beige Super Sculpey, my pink Sculpey 3, and translucent clay. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix that up right here. All right, and then once we've got that mixed, I'm still not completely satisfied with the color here, so we're going to add a little bit of red with our chalk pastels, and I'm just scraping off a little bit of the surface directly onto the clay with my X-Acto knife. All right, now once we've got that, we're gonna mix that together. I'm still not in love with it, so I'm gonna add a little bit of brown to this. That color looks pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied with it, not gonna lie. And then the next color we're gonna mix is going to be a very dark red. And you could totally go to the store and get some dark red, but I don't have any dark red clay, so I'm just gonna mix my own. Get a little bit of the brown, black, red. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm gonna take a piece of this and I'm going to ball it up, and then just gonna flatten it with my fingers. And then once that's flattened, I'm going to gently press it into my mouth here. And then I'm going to take a little bit more and add some more at the bottom so that the entire inside of the mouth is dark red. And then I'm also going to kind of shape out the roof of the mouth here. Alright, now that we have that, it's time to make the upper gums. And I'm going to roll out a piece of my gum colored clay here. And then I'm going to place it along the top of my mouth. There we go. And then I'm going to repeat the same process to create the bottom gums. That, and just kind of pressing everything together. Alright, I think now we're going to add some teeth. So I'm just going to take our tooth here that's pre-baked, push it into the upper gums, and then repeat this for a few more teeth. And then as I'm adding the teeth, I'm just going to take my large ball stylus here and shape the back of the gums a little bit. Add a few more teeth and a couple fangs. We'll just do one on each side for now. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now before we get too carried away with the teeth, I'm going to make the tongue next and get that put in there. And to do that, I'm just going to take the same color I used for the gums, and I'm just going to rough out a tongue shape here. Like that. And I think I want the tongue on this to be pointy, so I'm going to bring it to a point at one end. Then I'm going to take my ball stylus again and make a little indentation for where I will be inserting the tongue. And then just as another added detail, I'm going to make the frenulum, which is that little piece of tissue that connects the bottom of your tongue to the floor of your mouth. So just going to blend the edges in on that. And I don't even know if we're going to see this when it's done, but I mean, it'll be there. Alright, that doesn't look too bad. Now before we add the tongue to our mouth, we are going to make some details here on the bottom. And then once we have that, I'm just going to shape the tongue a little bit more here before I insert it. Then I'm going to gently press it in and shape it a little bit more until I get it to a spot where I like it. And then I'm going to use my ball stylus to connect the bottom of the tongue to the mouth, blend it in a little bit. That's looking pretty good. And now it's time to detail the tongue. So I'm just going to press a line down the middle of it like that. And then I'm going to take my toothbrush and I'm going to texturize the entire surface. And this actually creates a pretty convincing texture. And it's fairly simple to do. Like you're just dabbing it with a toothbrush. And then after this, I'm going to take my old paintbrush here and I'm just going to dab it all over the tongue like that. And that just adds another level of detail to it. Now, once I got the tongue where I want it, I'm going to just add the rest of my teeth here. Alright, now once we have all of our teeth in here, it's looking pretty good. It's kind of coming to life. I'm liking it so far. And now it's time to add the lips. I'm going to sculpt a basic lip shape here, smaller at each end, and then add it to the bottom of the mouth and blend in the edge like that. And then just shape everything a little bit as needed. Alright, now once you're at this point, we are going to texturize the lips now. And I'm going to do this by making vertical and horizontal lines all over the place. Like so. And then just go ahead and smooth and even everything out as needed. And then we're going to repeat this process for the top lip, but we're going to sculpt it a little more in detail before we add it. So I'm just going to use my thumb here and shape out the lip, and this will include the lips and the upper lip area and Cupid's bow as well. So I'm just going to keep that in mind while I sculpt this and get it to a point that I like before I add it. Alright, that's looking pretty good, so I think we're ready to add it. I'm just going to place it on top like that, pinch it at the edges, and just kind of keep shaping it until I'm happy with it. You just have to eyeball it. There's no really right way of doing this. And then let's add a mole, just for the heck of it. I feel like that'll be a nice touch. So I'm just balling up a small piece of clay, pressing it on. Then I'm going to blend out the edges here using my spoon tool. And then continue smoothing everything out and shaping it with my finger, like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and texturize the top lip the same way that I texturized the bottom one, by drawing both vertical and horizontal lines across the top, just kind of going with the shape of the lip. And then just for some added reinforcement, I'm going to add a little bit of Bacon Bond to the tops of the teeth. And then I am using translucent Bacon Bond, which means that after it cures, you won't see it. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to texture all the other areas of skin by adding a bunch of lines just really every which way until I get to a good point that I like. So far I'm really happy with it. So I'm just going to bake this according to the instructions on my clay, and when it's cured, it'll be time to paint it. Alright, so now that our mouth has completely hardened, it is time to paint some details on it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of color to the tongue, just so it's not this solid pink anymore. So I'm going to mix some red and brown here, and I'm going to water it down really good, just because I don't want it to be a solid color, because the tongue is still a little translucent, believe it or not. I don't know if the camera's showing it too well, but it is. I have my paper towel in one hand, paintbrush in the other hand, and I'm going to just coat one half of the tongue here, and wipe it off gently with my paper towel. Alright, now that's looking pretty good, and now I'm just going to do the same thing with the gums up here. And then if you get any paint on an area that you don't want paint, like the teeth for example, you can just wipe it right off, because it is watered down so much, so it shouldn't be too hard to get off. Alright, now I'm going to go back and do a couple touch-ups here on the tongue, make sure everything's looking good. Next here, I'm going to paint the skin. I'm going to tone it a little bit, make it more dimensional, so I'm just going to use some watered down straight brown, and I'm going to paint that on over the entire surface of the skin, and then I'm just going to rub it off like I did with the other parts. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now I'm just going to take my detail brush here, mix together some red and brown, and I'm just going to define the teeth a little bit around the gum area. So I'm just going to paint a very fine line around the whole thing, and then I'm going to blend it upwards into the gums. And this will just create more definition and look even more gross, which is what we want. Alright, I'm liking it. Looks pretty good to me. Alright, now to make it even weirder, I am going to put some lipstick on this. I don't know why I thought of this, but I just think it would just take it to that like next level creepy. So I'm just going to use some straight red for that and just paint it on. That's looking so weird. Alright, I have no idea where I got this idea from either, so... Okay, I'm liking it. I think the lips need a little more definition though, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some dark red here and kind of outline them and blend it in. just so it's not so bright. I like it, I like it. Now I'm just gonna take a little bit of glossy varnish here, my triple thick, and just spread it along the lips to make it look more realistic. Cool. I like it. I'm thinking now I should have made this a magnet instead of a pin though. Whatever, I don't have to commit to the pin yet. I can just glue a magnet on instead. Alright, now once that's completely dry, you're going to mix your resin according to the instructions on the box. And then you're just going to apply it to the tongue and inside of the mouth with a popsicle stick or old paintbrush. And this is going to be the drool, which really makes this disgusting, but it's what we want. Weird is good sometimes, right? Okay, I think she's done. Now I'm just going to wait for this to dry completely, and then I will apply my pin back to her. And like I said earlier, I might actually end up making this into a magnet instead, but it's whatever you want. And that's how you make some creepy lips. Now go take these and pin them to something and creep your friends out. Or maybe lose some friends. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I have new ones coming every week, so be sure to hit subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.